Good morning, all. My name is Janet Carroll Ryan, and it's my delight to share a couple of the elements of service with you today. And I'm going to begin by acknowledging this beautiful altar, contributed by Carine Rosenblatt. She has collaborated with me on a couple of altars, and this is her first solo. She's stepping up to contribute to the altar team, so let's acknowledge. The altars bring that element of visual beauty and sacredness and the symbols that represent the theme. And, of course, today is Seducing the Divine. We have the divine masculine and feminine in the very center of this flourishing beauty. And now it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage a dear friend. She's not only a dear friend of this community, she's a dear friend of our movement. Reverend Mary Shelton is a masterful teacher, speaker, published author, and trained actress. Last Sunday, she celebrated her 28th year in the ministry. Can you believe? And I would say that she is a testimony, a personal living testimony to the revivification that comes from this philosophy, because she's so youthful. How could you have 28 years in the ministry? She has led pulpit ministry in Santa Rosa, Huntington Beach, and Vancouver. She has, as I mentioned, published a book. She's working on a new one. And she is now focusing on sacred union through weddings, being a master officiator and minister of weddings, practicing sessions, retreats, and of course speaking. So we are delighted to welcome Reverend Mary Shelton to our stage.
Good morning. It's really so delightful to be here with you this morning. I'm very honored to stand in for Carol. Reverend Carol is speaking in Placerville this morning, and then she's going on up to Oregon to retrieve her daughter Melanie, who's just graduated from college and is going to be home for a minute and a half. And before she launches off into her life. So, you know, what's happening is Carol, too, is launching into a whole new life. Those of you who have had your kids leave the nest, you know how that is. So that's about to be her next experience now, and we hold her in love as she prepares that. As I begin this morning, I want to draw your attention to the poster board over here that's titled What We Believe. In the 1920s, our founder, Ernest Holmes, wrote in Science of Mind magazine an essay that he called What I Believe. And now we refer to it as What We Believe, but it also is sometimes called the Declaration of Principles. It's kind of the Apostles' Creed for religious scientists, although you don't have to believe it. But so what has happened here, you know, you're not required to believe anything here. Isn't that interesting? So what we've done this year is Reverend Carol has divided this statement of what we believe up into 12 sections, one for each month. And so we're on the 6th one right now, which is, we believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. We believe that God is personal to all who feel this indwelling presence. So as you go through, you'll see that this is the 6th statement up there. And so this month, we're focusing on the theme of oneness. Oneness with all that is, oneness with humanity, oneness with everything that lives and exists. And so I decided that what I wanted to talk about today in this element of oneness is how to seduce the divine. How to seduce the divine. Rocco Errico, the Aramaic scholar, says that the word for prayer in Aramaic means to lay a trap. And what I think is that what we're really doing is we're not actually laying a trap for God. We're laying a trap for ourselves, really. God is the essence of love that could not resist manifesting in form to be expressed. And Ernest Holmes, our founder, describes it this way. He says, "It would seem to be a fundamental fact that love is the basic reality of life. It would in turn give rise to a firm conviction that God is love. God, creative intelligence, depends on its creation for expression. The expression depending on God for its existence. God could never stop creating or loving. Neither can creation cease loving or expressing God." So we find that we are linked with the divine presence. It is manifesting as us, and we are discovering it and ourselves as we live and express more of that divine presence. So I think the divine presence overflows into creation, that it can't help that, and that creation then, meaning all of us as well, have that same capacity of overflow in terms of expressing and creating. We can't resist it. It's in our own nature. And sometimes it shows up as mischief. I came across this story. Several men were in the locker room at the golf club when a cell phone on a bench rang, and a man pushed the speakerphone button on it and began to talk, and everyone else in the room stopped to listen. "Hello? Honey, it's me. Are you at the club?" "Yes." "I'm at the mall now, and I found this beautiful Italian leather coat. It's only $1,000. Is it okay if I buy it?" "Sure, go ahead if you like it that much. I also stopped by the Mercedes dealership today, and I test drove some of the 2014 models, and I saw a convertible I really liked." "How much?" $123,000. "Well, okay, but for that price, I want it with all the options." "Oh, great. Oh, and one more thing. That house we wanted last year is back on the market. They're asking $1,200,000. "Well, okay, make them an offer, but just offer $1 million. "Okay, I'll see you later. I love you. Bye. Love you too." The man ended the call as the other men in the locker room looked at him in amazement. And then he held up the cell phone and asked, "Anyone know whose phone this is?" Mischief. Sometimes our expression turns into mischief in the process. One of the things that I think about this process of trying to find the divine or get into a relationship with the divine or seduce the divine is we don't really have to work that hard at drawing the divine to us. Because as the presence of love, the divine wants that connection, enjoys that connection, already knows us better than we know ourselves. But we have to discover that. So one of the first things to understand in this process is that God is easy. How many of you saw the movie Jerry Maguire? Yeah? So I'm going to paraphrase Renee Zellweger's line. We had God at hello. There's no struggle or effort involved in this. We had God at hello. Now, I'm going to be teaching a class later on this month for couples based on Dr. John Gottman's work and his book, The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. And what I want to do this morning is weave together the idea of principles that make a relationship, or really all of our relationships, work, and what doesn't make them work, and relate that both to our human relationships and to our relationship with the divine. Because the truth is, we're always in relationship, and all of our relationships are one relationship. So I used to tell my students, whenever we pray for anything, whatever it is that we think we're praying for, a job, a home, a better car, a relationship, health, whatever it is we think we're praying for, we're really always praying for more God. That's what we're actually praying for, in the form of, whatever it may be. So when we look at the relationship of a couple, we're looking at that larger relationship as a microcosm. Our relationship with our beloved And so the relationship with the beloved is like a good big example we can get a hold of. Now, if you don't have a beloved particularly right now, imagine one. And here's the clue. Here's the clue to finding a relationship with a beloved, and that is whatever the qualities are that you have on your list. How many of you have a list? Yeah. Whatever the qualities are that you have on that list for your beloved, are you that? Become that, and you will attract that beloved. And in the meantime, you will get to enjoy that beloved because you'll be with them all the time. Does this make sense? So, John Gottman worked with over 3,000 couples over 4 decades to find this research. Now, he did this because, as a therapist, he discovered that most couples therapy was based on individual therapy and best guess or opinion as to what would work. And most of it failed. He was the first one to do real research and discover what makes marriages thrive. Now, you might think it's having a lot in common. It's not. You might think it's never disagreeing with one another. It's not. You might think that men are from Mars and women are from Venus, and that's a problem. Not true. 70% of women find that their intimate relationship with their husband, the sexual relationship, the passion, the satisfaction, is related to the quality of their friendship. And 70% of men find the same thing. So they're really from the same planet. And what makes marriage work is the quality of the friendship that they have. Now, this is also true in our relationship with the divine. What's the quality of friendship? So here's how Gottman defines friendship. He says that friendship is first fondness and admiration for the other person. That secondly, it is allowing the other person to influence us. And thirdly, it is positive sentiment override, or really, positive sentiment override means you give the other person the benefit of the doubt, so that when they screw up, instead of thinking, what is it with you? You know, you never pay any attention to me, or you always forget my birthday, or why didn't you pick up the dry cleaning? I reminded you 4 times. Instead, we assume positive intent. And we might think to ourselves, well, you know, he's really busy this week, or she's going through a lot, she needs more sleep, or it could happen to anybody, or I might have forgotten it myself. So we assume and we build up a kind of bank account of positive regard and positive approach to the way we think about the other person's behavior, even when it isn't exactly what we want. It isn't that couples that have long-term happy relationships never argue with each other either. Some of them have great screaming fits. It's not the issue so much of whether they want to process together or not talk about it at all, or happy marriages contain all of those things. What works best is if their style is kind of the same. Neither of us wants to talk about it, and that's just fine with us. Or both of us want to process, and that works really well for us. Are you with me so far? So we have this understanding that our love relationships are a reflection of the beloved, and that these relationships apply to interactions with people, interactions with the divine. Countries interacting with each other could use these principles too, I think, to reflect on their relationship. So when you hear about our partnership corner later with the Ukraine, think about that. You know, relationships between countries, are they cultivating their friendship? Are they holding one another with fondness and affection and admiration? Are they allowing themselves to influence one another? Are they assuming good intent? So, these are the things that work in our relationship. There's also some things that, and Meir Baba, the Jewish mystic, said this about love. I love this. He said, true love is unconquerable and irresistible. It goes on gathering force until it transforms everyone it touches. True love is unconquerable and irresistible. It goes on gathering force until it transforms everyone it touches. That's power. So what are the things that don't work? Well, there are a number of things that Gottman talks about, but I'm going to talk about one that I find, see, I'm trying to do things bilingually this morning. I have my notes here for my talk, but then I have the notes for when I need to change the slides. And so it's like I'm trying to speak French and English simultaneously. And I haven't done this where I'm running the slides before, so if I look perplexed occasionally, it's not you. And it's not the talk, it's the slides. So I want to share with you this quote from the Gospel of Matthew. This is something that Jesus said. It's very interesting the way he said this. It was a little bit tricky. It says, and one of them, out of this group with him, one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law? You know how when you have a profession, that's the lens you look through at life. So the lawyer is looking through the lens of the law. This is what he's asking about. And Jesus said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. So he's putting this exhortation to love into language that his questioner can understand. This commandment is a command. This is a law to love. And then he goes on to say, and the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Now, there are two important messages in there. You are expected to love yourself. You are expected to love your neighbor. And that's the law. Great. So he gave the lawyer a response that was legal by pointing him toward love as the law. Brilliant. And then he says, on these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. In other words, there's nothing else outside of love that guides all of this. It is the singular focus. Now the lawyer can go off and practice love, knowing that he's doing his legal responsibility. So love is where we start in our relationship with the beloved. But then sometimes we have problems. Now, the problems I'm going to share with you are problems that even couples with very happy relationships have. But when they're allowed to take over the relationship, they derail it and sometimes permanently damage it. And I love Gottman's sense of humor because he refers to them as the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which we know is the beginning of the end. There they are. Scary guys. So the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, these derail our relationship not only with our beloved, but with any people in our lives, and also derail our relationship with God. And they are criticism, which Gottman says criticism is different than complaint. You can complain all you want about what happened. Criticizing is aiming at the person. There's something wrong with you. Criticism is one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And he says there is an antidote to this. The antidote to criticism is to cultivate an atmosphere of fondness and appreciation with your partner. In other words, to deepen your friendship. Now, with God, the way that criticism shows up is that you're the victim. Why is God doing this to you? God never loved you anyway. That's the problem. Or you have done something wrong, and that's why God is doing all this bad stuff to you. So when we're victims, we're entering into that criticism mode in our relationship with the divine. Are you with me so far? Is this making sense? The second one is defensiveness. He said the thing about defensiveness is, in relationships, when one partner is defensive, the other one will attack them more. And he said the reason that's true is because somehow you need to take at least some responsibility for what's going on, even if you think the whole thing is the other person's fault. You need to take at least some responsibility, share it. So when it comes up for us with God, this is when we get into it's not my fault. The devil made me do it. Or, this is how you made me, God. I can't help it. It's not my fault. And although God doesn't hold it against us, when we think about ourselves that way, it gets in the way of our relationship with the divine. When we feel defensive toward God, God's going to punish me, I'm going to get in front of it and say, it's not my fault, I couldn't do anything about it. The third is the most damaging of the four horsemen, and it is contempt. Contempt is when we feel like our partner does not deserve our respect and regard. They are beneath us. They are unworthy. It is the most caustic of the four horsemen. This, with our relationship with God, is when we become cynical and sarcastic about life and about what's going on in the world and about what's possible. This is when we're being contemptuous toward the divine, as if we actually understood everything that's happening and everybody's inner thoughts and motivations. We do tend to assume that we understand all that. Anybody ever complain about anything you hear on the news? About any political decisions that are made anywhere? Right? So we want to have the opportunity then to move on from that. And then the last one that Gottman talks about is stonewalling. This is when you just shut down and you stop responding to the other person altogether. You've had it, you're overwhelmed, you just can't speak. They're not there, you don't see them, you're not talking to them. Now, it's more subtle in our relationship with God. The way that we stonewall God is that we don't communicate. We don't take any time for prayer or meditation. We don't then allow ourselves to receive guidance or influence from God. We are resisting that. We are incommunicado. We are not available. Does that make sense? So these are the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And one of the ways in which we can resist influence by our partner or by the divine is Gottman encourages us to turn toward one another. When we're making little bids for attention, for example, if I were to say to Amanda, my partner, you know, that movie that you said you were interested in seeing is out. Now, she has a choice of how she's going to respond to me. She might say, oh, yeah, we should make a plan to go see that. That would be turning toward me, turning toward what I've said, responding to that bid for connection, right? She could also turn away. She could say, are you kidding? I don't have time to do that. That would be, or another way of turning away is she could be doing something and she'd go, no real response. Okay, well, that wasn't too enthusiastic. Or the third option is to turn against. And that would be if she said something to me like, don't you know I have 75 things to do? Why are you tormenting me by inviting me to do this when you know that I don't have time to get out and go do this? You know, now I'm putting this on her, but this is more the way that my end of the conversation, you know, might tend to go. What we want to be able to do is to turn toward those bids for connection. And they are very simple, but millions of them happen every day with people. And so God's bids for attention are like this. Did you notice what kind of a day it is today? Did you notice flowers on your way in today? Were there birds singing? What was the temperature of the air? Did you notice anything special? Did you meet anyone interesting? Those are God's bids for attention. And when we ignore them, when we overlook them, we are refusing to let ourselves be influenced by the divine. Does that make sense? So we want to be able to keep those lines of communication open. Now, we can learn how to do this with relationships with the 7 principles. Those are skills. So no matter how difficult our relationship has become, almost always, we can begin to retrieve it and bring it back by learning the principles and applying them. I'm not going to talk about what they are because we don't have time. But in our life with God, sign up for the class. Then you'll get 11 weeks of it and we'll have a blast. But in our relationship with God, what we do is we use our spiritual practices. And when we begin to get skillful at our spiritual practices, they cultivate our friendship with God. We begin to experience the love and fondness and admiration that the divine has for us and we for the divine. we begin to experience a sense of connectedness. We begin to experience that guidance is coming to us and we're getting it. We begin to experience positive sentiment override. Even when something goes badly in our lives, we assume that God is sending a blessing and we just don't see it yet. When we are meditating, when we are doing our spiritual mind treatment or affirmations, when we are taking classes and studying, when we are in sacred service, when we are doing responsible sacred giving, when we're engaged in those spiritual practices, we are doing the seduction of the divine, but really we're seducing ourselves into that divine relationship. That's what's happening there. So in the relationship with God, all of our relationships are relationships with God. God is the macrocosm that holds all of our relationships inside of itself. And that is what we're moving toward being aware of. The word I chose to represent all of this today is reflection. We are reflecting the divine. Our beloved is reflecting us. We are reflecting the universe. The universe is reflecting God and us. It's all mirrors. There is, I think it's a Sufi quote that says, there is a polish for everything that rusts, and the polish for the heart is the remembrance of God. The polish for the heart is the remembrance of God. So how we treat others is how we are treating God. And what we want to do then is begin to get skillful. So I'm going to give you a little piece of homework. What I'm going to invite you to do this week with this little piece of homework is to make a simple ledger for yourself. A simple ledger for yourself. And I want you to give yourself 1 point every time you turn toward someone's bid for connection. Every time you get 1 point. Now, I don't want you to take anybody else's inventory, so please don't keep track of how many times your partner turns toward you. Right? But how are you turning toward your partner? Here's the thing. The possibility is always here. Norman Vincent Peale told this little story. He said, many of the world's finest oriental rugs come from little villages in the Middle East. Each rug is hand-produced by a crew of men and boys under the direction of a master weaver. Since they work from the underside of the rug to be, it frequently happens that a weaver absent-mindedly makes a mistake and introduces a color that's not according to the pattern. When this occurs, the master weaver, instead of having the work pulled out to correct the color sequence, will find some way to incorporate the mistake harmoniously into the overall pattern. It is a useful object lesson, Peale says, for we can all learn to take unexpected difficulties and mistakes and weave them advantageously into the greater pattern of our lives. There is an inherent good in most difficulties. So no matter where we are in our skill level, here we are created to express and create. We have the capacity to learn if we're willing to be teachable. If we're willing to, we can practice. We can get better at the skills. And you know, even an unskilled attempt, if partners are willing to turn toward each other, can make huge differences. You don't have to be an expert. Same thing with God. And I want to share one last little story with you. This is by Rita Kahn. As a professional speaker, I often bring blue ribbons to use at my talks, even though I don't always get to use them. At one particular meeting, I demonstrated the blue ribbon ceremony with the group and invited each person to acknowledge the person they were with. Afterward, a woman tearfully shared that her husband had looked right into her eyes and told her, for the first time in 25 years of marriage, that she was beautiful and that he was so glad she had chosen him as her husband. She went on to say that he even told her that she was a wonderful cook and had taken such good care of him in their home, And lastly, he told her how very much he had loved her all these years. Everyone in the room listened in when she explained that her husband was a man of very few words. Harry is the type who, if asked, "Do you love me?" could only reply, "Would I be here if I didn't love you?" 6 months later, Rita says, I stopped by to visit a friend I hadn't seen in a long time. We chatted in her shop, and just as I was about to leave, another woman came through the door. My friend looked at me and said, "Oh, Rita, I'd like to introduce you to Betty. She works for me part-time. Betty, this is Rita Kahn, a longtime friend of mine." Betty looked at me and turned white. "Oh, my God," she exclaimed. "I don't believe it. I've been looking for you for months. I don't know if you remember my husband and me. We were first-time guests at an organization where you spoke 6 months ago. You taught us the Who I Am Makes a Difference blue ribbon ceremony. I shared in front of the group that my husband, who hardly ever communicated affectionately, told me he loved me and was so glad I had chosen him as my husband." I smiled and nodded. Of course. How could I forget that evening or that sharing? He was so genuine and sweet when he stood next to you and thanked me for giving him the opportunity to declare his love for you in front of everyone. I speak to groups and organizations all over the country, and I don't always get to do the blue ribbon ceremony. For some reason, that night I was inspired to bring the ribbons along and use them. "Well," she said, "I've been wanting to find you to thank you for that evening. You see, my husband died of a heart attack the very next day. Now, I keep that ribbon on my dresser where I can always see it. I always knew he loved me, but hearing him say it in front of everyone was so special. If you had not done that blue ribbon ceremony, I might have wondered the rest of my life if I had really made a difference to Harry. Now, every time I look at the ribbon, it reminds me of Harry's face, his smile, and his last words of love." This is the message I want you to have today. It is never too late. It is always possible to take another step, to learn a little more, to get a little bit more skilled, and to remember that all of it is loving the divine. Namaste. So much. And here is the morning takeaway, I hope, yes, that I want to share with you. It is never too late. I can learn skills to help make my relationships loving and lasting. My beloved is another form of the divine presence loving me. So let's take this within. We're going to do a little bit of the inner work now in relationship to this. So let's know together that the presence of Spirit, of God, of infinite intelligence, of the divine mystery is the presence of unlimited love, boundless, abundant, enormous, and we are made from that. So right here and now, I know for each one of us that that love is growing brighter within us. It's growing stronger. It's growing more noticeable to us. And really what's true is it's just our perception that is becoming fine-tuned to the truth of who and what we are. So we step out into our path today and this week, allowing ourselves to shine brightly, to be a reflection of that light in all others around us, to awaken them to who they are, deeply, truly within, knowing that this is the journey of life, to know the light that we are and to see the light reflected in each other. This is the light of the divine in us, and it draws to us everything needed and necessary for this earth walk that we are doing now. I'm so grateful to know and to accept this for all of us, right here and now, for all people in the Ukraine, for all sentient beings everywhere in this universe or any universe, anywhere, any when. We accept this with great gratitude and celebration now, knowing that it is the truth. The divine is already seduced because we are created from love. So we release this prayer with great gratitude into that creative law of mind and spirit that always says yes, and into the divine presence where it has always been the truth of us and where it is already done. We let it go and we let it be so. And together we say, and so it is. And so it is.
Down by the riverside, my burden, down by the riverside, I ain't gonna study war no more, ain't gonna study war no more, ain't gonna study war no more. 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 I'm gonna put down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Down my sword and shield, down by the riverside, and study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I'm gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside and study war no more. Richard Riley.
Thank you so much for sharing your gift, your passion, your beautiful voice, and your bright spirit with us today, Richard. Thank you. So this is our opportunity to give forth from the eternal into the receptivity that seduction of the divine, that is the giving and the receiving that happens all at once. As I call forth the ushers, please prepare your gift with some quality that you experience today, some insight, some gift, some blessing from Reverend Mary's wonderful, inspiring talk. And give forth from the infinite within you, knowing that it is instantly replenished as we say together this blessing. This gift I give is God in action. I now send it forth to bless and to prosper. I know that everywhere it goes, it is creating a world living in love, one heart and one thought at a time. And so it is. And now will the ushers receive the gifts as Bodhi plays some beautiful music.
I send my love over the mountain. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heaven, and it returns to me. Peace, I send my peace over the mountain. I send my peace over the hill. I send my peace into the heaven. It returns to me. Power. I send my power over the mountain. I send my power over the sea. I send my power into the heaven. It returns to me. Joy. I send my joy over the mountain. I send my joy over the sea. I send my joy into the heaven. It returns to me. I send my love over the mountain. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heaven, and it returns to me.
And so I declare these gifts magnified, multiplied by that law of increase that is the divine expressing itself, overflowing. I know the love with which we give this gift returns to each one of us, multiplied, increased, as this gift goes forth to bless the world. And so it is. Blessed be. So we have some wonderful events in this community, which I'm a little bit like the bilingual situation here with the slides and the announcements. First off, Gourmets for God. Today, Reverend Brent will be our point person for this. And I understand that the bidding is complete, and so if you have payments to make, Brent will. Where will you be, Reverend Brent? In the back of the room. A brand new class that Reverend Mary mentioned is coming up, focusing on the principles that she spoke of and the work, the powerful work for empowering relationship. And Reverend Mary will be at the education table taking your sign-ups and answering any questions you may have about it. On the first Sunday of each month, we specifically focus on our partnership with the Ukraine, the spiritual community founded by Reverend Barbara. So I understand that they are very pleased with the election of a new Ukrainian president. Joe Hughes is saying something we don't know. I think I'm saying it for her. She has a letter. Did you? I wasn't aware of that. Okay. Would you like to say something, Joe? Okay. Come on forth. Joe Hughes, representing for the Ukraine today.
I'm not sure I'm really representing. I'm certainly sharing. Reverend Barbara and I had a wonderful discussion this past week, and I was very moved from my life pattern of working with youth. And it's a new beginning there. So let me just paraphrase some of her letter. I didn't get the Russian one in front of me, thank goodness. There has never been a more important time than this right now, this one right now. Our country is in the middle of this most important moment where we must peacefully change the way things are done. Clearly, there is a transformation going on, and cooperation and collaboration are some of the most important skills to be needed in the coming years. There's a treasure in every moment, a gift in every person, and a purpose in every situation. This perfectly segues to what we've been feeling today. I feel moved to stand for the youth as they have been writing letters. And as Barbara has said, it is we, the adults, who must change. We must change. We must be brave. And we must see you as you truly are. We will walk with this wonderful emergence, this new beginning of the youth who are reaching out to us. As we've had a call and response in our music, let's be the response. As we've had a relationship discussion today, let's be the relationship. Please do join me at the back table as we start a new beginning for Temenos. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. Peace, love, Ukraine. Beautiful. My next announcement has to do with the goddess gathering known as Woman's Spirit. The registration for those who would like to participate this year, which happens in the fall, there we go, that registration is taking place online. And by the way, here's a little factoid you may not know. Reverend Mary was the founder of Women's Spirit, yes? This is a month in which we have a fifth Sunday, and something really special happens on the fifth Sunday, and that's brunch at Jet Walker's home. She will host it, and those who wish to sign up can bring food and share and partake in that. There she is. Our very own Francine Huss, published author. Wow! Francine's brand new book, Think Better, Live Better, will be launched right here at the Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living after service on June 15th. So please do come buy your book, get it signed, meet and greet our author. What a divine blessing, truly. Thank you, Francine. And now our ritual workshop, Reverend Carol will offer her summer ritual workshop on July 11th. So there's a bit of time yet to think about it, but do make your registration known so she can prepare in advance for how many wish to attend. And Carine will be at the back table. Carine, where are you? There you are. And Hillary as well? Okay, good. At the back table to sign up for that if you wish. So I believe that completes our announcements, and Michael will come forth and do our closing prayer. Thank you, Michael.
Would the practitioners on duty please come forward, and would the other practitioners surround us, holding the high watch? These practitioners coming forward are here for you should you have anything left that needs to be further celebrated or released. Please don't hesitate to see one of them at the practitioner table here. And please accept this benediction. The one life lives itself, and I give thanks for its expression through each one of its unique manifestations, right here and right now. And I call forth its blessing on each as we go out into the world, filled up, overflowing with that love that reaches the farthest corners, Ukraine, Syria, Sudan, wherever love might be needed. We send it out now. And so it is. May Spirit guide your way. So please stand and join me for the affirmation and closing song. I was created by love, and love is my true nature. I let love be expressed through me. I radiate love and attract love and receive love with skill and joy from all my relationships and from the divine.
I am a prayer for peace. Wherever I go, peace goes with me. I feel peace inside. In every breath, peace abides. I know the joy of peace, and I choose fear to relieve. Every moment love wakes up, and peace is every step. Peace is every step.